Good morning. Hopefully I can get better at this and you guys can follow along pretty well. Uh, Today's lecture is on the Jewish revolt. This is one of my favorite topics to go over. It is fascinating to see all the different characters that were in play here. The more I look at it, just like all my history, the more I look at it, the more I want to know about it. Okay. After watching the video, you're going to do there's a discussion here for today, and all you need to do on the discussion is turn in how you rate your discussion with your family members. So don't worry about writing out what you actually talked about. Now, the extension, I'll talk about the extension too after this quick video. Okay, Jewish War. Let me get this out of the way a little bit. And we're going. Okay, Jewish War. I didn't put a timeline in this. Oh no. I believe the Jewish War started about 67 AD. And it lasted until about 73 AD or CE. There are a few characters we'll be looking at here and a few short stories that I'll be giving you. Okay, before we start the Jewish War, we got to look at the four groups. The four main Jewish groups are the Pharisees. And the Pharisees are a group of Jewish priests who believe in the Torah. Now, the Torah is the first 5 books of the Bible: Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, and Deuteronomy. And they also believe in the divine or in the teachings of the prophets. So after the Torah, Moses is believed to have written the Torah. And we'll go over this again later on when we look at the 3 major monotheistic religions right before we start Christianity. So Moses wrote the Torah, but after the Torah, there was a series of prophets. And these prophets would come along and they would teach the Jewish people or remind them about how they should live. Now, the Sadducees are another group. Now, the Sadducees, I think, are a little bit more conservative. Okay, they didn't like this new idea of these prophets, and so they thought only the 5 books of the Torah should be considered to be God's word. But these are the 2 main groups of priests. Both of them are somewhat politically aligned with the Romans. They realize that the Romans control quite a bit. And since these priests have a lot of political power, they know that they should align with them. Now, this third group are the Essenes. Now, the Essenes, I don't want to color it too much, but they are very independent. They are generally young people that will go off into the wilderness to study the religion the way that they think they should study it. They are worried about that political aspect to it. Now, there's another group too. We can call them zealots. They're also called Sicarii, or some of the zealots are Sicarii. Now, Sicarii are a group of Jewish ninjas, and no, they're not ninjas, but I like to use the word ninjas because they do the same thing that a ninja would do. They blend into crowds and they kill people. And so this group of Sicarii, they're named after the little knife they carry, and they are trying to start a war with Rome. And they will sneak into crowds during the high holy days of the Jewish calendar and kill people. All of a sudden, a dead person will be laying there. No one knows who killed him or how he died. But their goal was to destabilize the Jewish groups and try to get the Romans and Jews into a war with each other. Now, Josephus. Josephus is an amazing guy. Some of the reading I looked at just about him recently, I didn't realize this, and I even have his book, but some of the readings I found out about him is he was studying with the Essenes a little bit. He would go off into the wilderness and live among those people. Now, the Essenes too, I forgot to mention this, but we've seen the Dead Sea Scrolls in previous lectures. The Dead Sea Scrolls were written by the Essenes, and these were people that would write down what they thought, what they wanted to preserve, and stash these texts so they wouldn't get arrested with them later on. But he studied with them for, I think, 3 or 4 years. He did return to mainstream Jewish life. He actually went to Rome for a little bit and talked with Nero's wife, and she helped him secure the release of some Jewish prisoners. And so he had a very fond relationship with Nero's wife. He liked her. That's the wife that Nero killed. He saw a value in the Roman way of life. He also saw that the Romans were very powerful and you shouldn't oppose them. But eventually, the Sicarii, the Zealots, get a war started between the Jews and the Romans. And they elect Josephus to be one of their generals. Now, initially, the Jews have some success, and Josephus, I believe, has a couple of battles where he beats the Romans, but then the Romans come on with a much stronger presence. I didn't know this story before, but there was a battle called Jotapata, where Josephus was the general there, and they were besieged 47 days. Eventually, it got down to the last 40 men, and they were hiding in a cave, and Josephus had this plan. He said, okay, it's against the rules for us to commit suicide, so what we need to do is we'll all draw lots. We'll cast lots, and whoever loses will be the last person alive. And so I'll kill you. Whoever is the last person, or each of them will kill one of their friends, ask for forgiveness before they're killed by one of their friends. It got down to the last two guys, and Josephus had fixed the game where he would be one of those last two. And he convinced his partner to surrender to the Romans. Now, generally, you don't want to surrender to the Romans. We talk about Vercingetorix and what they did to him in Gaul. Okay, you're not treated well. And so Josephus and his friend surrender to the Romans, and Josephus does something that is kind of interesting. When he surrenders to Vespasian's troops, he goes, I had a vision. Vespasian is going to be the next Roman emperor. Now, I don't know if he knew Vespasian or not. Vespasian wasn't seen as a big threat, but he was probably flattered by this. And so when he heard that, he allowed Josephus to live. And Josephus did try to help Vespasian conquer other territories, but the Jews saw Josephus as kind of a traitor, and the Romans didn't trust him because he was Jewish. And so he didn't really fit into either group very well. But as he grew older, he did retire to Rome, and he wrote a couple of books. One was called The Jewish War, where he outlines this war period. Another one was called The Antiquities of the Jews, where he tried to de-emphasize some of the spiritual aspects of the Jewish world and tried to make them more acceptable to the Roman world. I don't know how it played out, but we still have those books around today. The Jewish temple. Okay, I have no words written on this because we don't. Okay, now the Jewish temple, we talked about the first Jewish temple. Moses and Aaron built the little tabernacle, little tent. Solomon consolidated all the temples and built the first Jewish temple. This is the second Jewish temple, the one built by Herod the Great, who was the king of the Jews when Rome got control of them. Now, this temple is only around for about 70-something years because at the end of this Jewish revolt, what had happened was Titus, the son of Vespasian, he led the campaign against the Jewish city of Jerusalem. And when they came to the temple, they sacked it. They tore it apart. And they took all of the gold inside the temple and shipped it back home to Rome. They also sent thousands of slaves back to Rome because that's what would happen to conquered populations. And so the Jews, their center was destroyed. I would love to go back over this later on, but the Jews were eventually kicked out of Judea about 130-ish or 150-ish CE. They had another revolt. I think it's 130. They had another revolt where they tried to fight against the Romans. This time when the Romans came in, they outlawed anyone who was Jewish from living in Judea, their own old territory. one more story I want to get to before we get out of here. Vespasian, we'll cover a little bit. I don't want to get too much into him, but he's seen as a humble man. He was declared the emperor by the Egyptian legions in July of 69 CE. There were, I think, 3 emperors who served for very short times after Nero died. But eventually, within about a year, Vespasian had become the emperor, and he left his son Titus to conquer the rest of Jerusalem and Judea. Now, Vespasian also came back to Rome very wealthy because he had Egypt, which was the breadbasket of Rome, where all the food came from. And he also doubled the taxes in the provinces that he was in control of. And so people paid quite a bit of money. And so he had quite a lot of backing when he returned to Rome. We'll see that come along too. Now, I did want to give this one last story. Okay. This mountaintop is a temple, not a temple, but a palace that was built by Herod the Great. It's out along the Dead Sea. If you look up on that top of the picture, you can see a little bit of the water of the Dead Sea. But Masada was this, we call it a mesa out west, but it's a flat mountaintop. And some Jewish rebels got a hold of this during the Jewish War. And I don't know, I think it was on over here. There was a trail to the top of the mountain that only 1 or 2 people could dance on at a time. Otherwise, you couldn't get up to the top of this mountain. And the Jews and their families had a house up here. I believe they had water. They had other things that they could supply themselves with. And so they were fairly secure. But the Romans came along. Gotta get my glasses on so I can see this. And I believe you might be able to see some traces of their camp down here. They set up a camp, and they spent 2 years building this ramp right here. The Romans were very committed. When they were going to come get you, they were going to come get you. They spent 2 years building this ramp. There's not much the Jewish people can do to defend it. And they knew that as the Romans came up, that they would be killed brutally. And so before they got up here, just like the Josephus story in Jotapada, they killed themselves. Now, this is kind of a little more graphic because they killed their families first because they had their families up there with them. And then it came down to the last 13 men, and they drew lots and they killed themselves, and the last man killed himself. So when the Romans came up on top of the mountain, they were denied their victory. They got up there and everyone was dead. Now, this story makes it out because a woman and a child or 2 had hidden themselves in a well, and they were not detected by the Jewish people. I don't know if the Romans found out about them or not, but they made it out and told the story. And recently I've seen some articles about the pottery found up on Masada that had the names of the 13 gentlemen who killed themselves before the Romans advanced the final part up there. So the Jewish War, fascinating. And on the next lecture, we'll see what happened after the Jewish War, where all that gold and all those prisoners went, and what they did. If you have any questions, feel free to contact me. Again, your tasks are this. After you watch the slideshow, discuss with your family, like the Jews who revolted against Rome, do you have any religious, political, or other beliefs that you would fight for? The Jewish people, Masada, they evidently had something they'd fight for. Now, maybe not all the Jews, but there was a significant portion of the Jews who wanted to fight for their beliefs. Okay, just discuss it with your family. Do we have anything that's hard that we believe in? Rate your discussion 1 to 10, 10 being a great discussion, and 1 being not so good. And then based on what you learned, so rate it based on what you learned, and then turn in a brief rating to me. And just tell me what you learned, okay? If you want to, take a look. At the beginning of this week at the glance, I was saying that we have a period of stability and a period of collapse. all through history. So if this is true, look at the Augustan family. And what was their longest period of stability? And what events in their family could resent collapses? Okay, right now, the coronavirus could be a collapse. Okay, what's collapsing? We need to look at it. There may not be a lot, but it is going to be, it marks a change in our society, in our culture. And so let's look at this stability collapse cycle and start thinking about that. If you have any questions, shoot me an email. Hope everything's going well with you, and I'll talk to you again real soon. Take care.